We are back with another episode of Love in the Wild, the space where we explore love, life, and the inner work that keeps us showing up fully. I'm your host, Katelyn Ansari, and today is a very personal one because we are talking about something that so many of us silently juggle: high functioning anxiety. My guest today is Georgie Collinson, a two-time author of The Anxiety Reset Method and Master Your Relationship Anxiety. She is also a keynote speaker whose groundbreaking method, The Anxiety Reset Method, was featured by the queen herself, Oprah. Georgie helps women and men turn anxiety into calm confidence. We'll uncover practical strategies, mindset shifts, and tools that you can use to reclaim your power and live with clarity, focus, and courage. Thank you so much, Georgie, for being on the podcast.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be
Of
here. Thanks for having
course,
me.
I really resonated with obviously high functioning anxiety because, people see my presence on the internet and they're like, oh my gosh, you have anxiety. I'm like, I'm full of it. I'm like a cucumber with anxiety. But I would love to know a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to focus on helping women with high functioning anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super common story, and for me, my specific flavor is I grew up in a family of women where everyone had anxiety. I mean, the men too, but it presents differently for men often towards the way I felt it as a young woman. I remember looking at my mom and just wishing for these days where we could relax together and not be in a rush all the time and not need to quick, got to get somewhere, got to do something. Watching her pick herself apart and perfectionism. And then I grew up into an adult or late teenager with those same presentations. I was starting to experience the perfectionism, the mean, harsh inner critic, putting all this pressure on myself. And for a while, that worked okay for me. It helped me do really well in school. It helped me have lots of friends and make sure I curated my personality to ensure I kept lots of friends. But then when my parents divorced, my dad unexpectedly left my mum. It was like on a family holiday in Bali. It was just the worst because he was
Mm.
leaving her for another woman. And it devastated us. And so all of a sudden, that anxiety that had been just sort of mulling under the surface became much more intense. And after that, it was like every morning I'd wake up feeling like something's gone wrong here with this sense of dread. And that only sent the controlling tendencies, the anxiety into a whole other level because I thought, oh my goodness, like I can't control the world outside of me. So maybe I can try and control the world inside of me and again, make myself more perfect. It led me to study naturopathy and nutrition so that I could eat all the perfect foods and take all the right supplements and make this
Mm.
internal world as balanced as it could be to cope with the craziness outside of me. And again, that was well intentioned, but it only made things worse because then I was like restricting my food. I was binge eating secretly. I overdid the food rules to a point where my brain rebelled and my brain was like, no, 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 like I can't do this. So that only made things more challenging. It was only when I discovered working with the subconscious mind at the same time and delving into these deeper patterns that were underlying the programming that had me in these cycles of being perfect and controlling everything and needing it all a certain way. That's when I could finally shed so much of that conditioning and become what I call being a calm woman, which is where calm is your baseline. Confidence is something that you can switch on and cultivate. And yeah, I can still feel anxiety sometimes, but it's got no control over me. It's got no power. And if anything, it's a nice little reminder. It tells me, hey, it's time to take care of yourself, or there's something else to attend to here, to look in and connect with yourself. So I've found it to be this loving alarm bell that goes off from time to time, but it's got no impact over the way I live my life, which
I
is the
love
best
that
part.
you reframed it because as someone who has that high functioning anxiety, already relate to so much that you're saying. It's like, well, I was great in school and school was easy and everything I do, and this isn't in no way to toot my own horn, but like I do it so well because it's like perfectionism. I'm like, I have to do it right. So, saying all those things, I totally resonate with it. I like that you're not dismissing it. And growing up, my anxiety was always negative. It was always like, oh, she's having anxiety or she's in her spiral again. And it's like, if you can reframe it to say that that's your warning sign, it's your dinging bell to say, okay, I'm having anxiety. Maybe I am overscheduled or I'm overworked or I need to, what the kids are saying these days is go touch grass. Like I just need a reset. And, a little bit about me as well. I've always been this way. I've always had some form of anxiety. I feel like before it was even a thing in my like 20s and 30s, I started realizing, oh, I have anxiety. That's what this is. And then have done a lot of work with myself because I always controlled my food. I always dove super deep into the diet. And once I realized, I guess I didn't even realize and correlate the two, but you can't out diet anxiety because once I started being calm, I'm not a, you know, overweight person by any means, but I lost 14 pounds without even trying. I was like,
Mm.
what just happened? And it was like, I just attribute it to like 14 pounds of stress. It was just cortisol, like stuck in my body.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
when I found your page, I
Yeah.
was like, well, what is so different about, how anxiety shows up in women versus how it shows up in men?
Yeah. So, I mean, for men's physiology is designed to hold more biological stress than women. So they can actually take on that load. And I know this doesn't sound like what we want it to be, but it's unfortunately just the way that our bodies are built. For women, we are built for, like, on one level, reproduction and growing babies, and for us to do that, we need a certain level of softness. We need our estrogen, our progesterone. We need these hormones to be working together. And under a lot of stress, none of that functions very well. So our body, and whether you want to have children or not, fertility and our reproductive health is a huge signal of overall health and balance in the body. And so what's happened is this is such a big question. I'm like, how far do I take this? If we go back to the
Hmm.
women's rights movement, which is such an important shift that took place for women to have a choice in their lives, what it also resulted in was women adapting to a man's world. And essentially, rather than let's be powerful as women and see how powerful we can be from our true nature as feminine, creative, emotional beings, we went into how do I compete with men? So I have to become more like a man. And then we chastise ourselves when we are suffering more physically, our health, trying to do that. So if we try to, like, work really hard, 9 to 5, I mean, 9 to 5 is a bit of a joke, isn't it? Like 8 till
Yeah. Yeah.
7, like, I don't know who's working 9 to 5 anymore. So we try to keep up. We're expecting ourselves to be the same every week, and yet we are cycling. We're different every week depending on what our hormones are doing. Our world is not set up for women. So there's a reason why, at least the latest stats in Australia, I'm sure it'll be similar in the US, but the latest stats are actually 44% of women in Australia are struggling with anxiety. So that's
Wow.
almost half. Yes. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. There's also a reason why majority of autoimmune disease happens to women and not men. So our bodies are like protesting to all of this that's going on. So men tend to internalize anxiety more. So they will, for example, they might be feeling anxious, but they can still kind of push through a lot more than women typically can. They usually won't talk about their feelings at all. They may feel the pressure, but they will tend to express that pressure in an explosion of rage or anger, or maybe they'll do things like go down to the bar and drink their feelings. For women, we will have the benefit of being able to talk about our feelings, and we will present more overtly, like we can actually show some of that anxiety. It will be more apparent on the outside. We will also go harder into our perfectionism around our appearance, around controlling food is much, much more common for women to do as opposed to men, simply because of society's standards and what we've been told we have to be. So those would be some of the key ways that anxiety is a bit different depending on whether you're a man or a woman, just based on the kind of the rules of the world that we
That's
live in.
super interesting. And I read kind of what you were saying about how women's hormones are more on a month cycle versus where men's are on a daily cycle. And so we have to treat our bodies in a way that kind of aligns with that. Some weeks we're ready. We have, the hormones that support that. And I'm by no means a hormone specialist, but there's other weeks where we need to rest and we need to honor our bodies and we need to, if we're feeling tired, don't go grab another cup of coffee. It's like, go sit and rest. And, so
Yeah.
it's actually very interesting that you say that.
That's a prime example of that pushing through. So we might be in that week before our period where we're feeling more lower in energy, we're feeling more moody, irritable, sensitive. Maybe we really do just need to have a big cry. But if you're working a corporate job or like most people, or even you're running a business, like we can't just take a week off. So what we'll typically do is we'll have that extra cup of coffee, push through, try to be like a man. And I'm not saying that we have really much of a choice in this at this point, right? Like we don't always have the choice, but we can also try to choose how we treat ourselves in that time. We can let ourselves we can let ourselves off the hook a little better. We can give ourselves a little more grace in that time. And if possible, it's like, okay, if usually on a follicular phase week where you're in that zone where all your hormones are supporting energy, if that's the time where usually you can get 10 things done in the day, maybe in your luteal phase, you just aim for 3 or 4 things. We just take it down a notch. We get the bare minimum done, knowing you'll be able to have more
Yes,
capacity later.
I really like that. It's hard sometimes when we get, as someone who's high functioning anxiety, it's just you get into a tunnel vision where, you're
Yeah.
in such go mode and you're like, I'm gonna do this and I have to do all of this now. But your body's like, no, I'm tired. And you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But I want to kind of circle it back
Yeah.
to, your upbringing and then what kind of brought you into helping others? Like not only helping yourself and potentially your family, but what made you become someone that Oprah recommends?
It was really I remember being in the midst of struggling with it, and I was just so determined to find the answers. Like, I didn't want to accept that the traditional model that we have was all there is because it's very like, well, you're in therapy for the next 10 years and you're going to take this medication for the rest of your life, probably. Like, we're not really given solutions. We're given just these sort of sweep it under the rug kind of approaches. And I was so wanting more, especially coming from a naturopathic background where I was looking at how we can support our body more naturally, was curious about what those options were and what anxiety really is, which as I said to you, it's a signal of something's out of balance. It's not saying you are forever labeled with anxiety and that's all you are. You're just an anxious person. You caught this disease. Anxiety is a signal, so it's calling us to actually come and usually love a part of ourselves that we really think is unlovable. And a key one, for example, is our sensitivity. So, Caitlin, something you said earlier in your story really made me tweak that perhaps similar to me, you were a more sensitive child in the family, more sensitive and emotional. And most of us didn't grow up with parents that were able to be with that because they couldn't be with
Yeah.
their own emotions because there was no education and awareness around that. And thankfully now our generation that are parenting now are a bit more aware, which is great. And so hopefully we'll see a bit less of this. But when we are called too sensitive and shut down, what happens is we start to take on this label. We think there's something wrong with us because we're
Yeah.
feeling these emotions. And it's like, and now I'm alone and I don't know what to do with it because every time I get upset, everyone's like, oh, frustrated with
Mm.
me. So this is where this cycle appears, where then we get frustrated with ourselves. We don't have any space for our own sensitivity. And we think that there's something wrong with that. When I love to throw a reframe on sensitivity and actually remind us all how integral it is. Firstly, it's something that sets us apart from AI in the future that we're heading towards is having an emotional guidance system, a heart that says this feels right and this feels wrong. It's the thing that helps us as especially as women because we're more attuned with our emotions, has us look at the world's problems and say that's not okay. Like what we're doing throwing all this plastic into the environment, that's not okay. That
Hmm.
hurts my heart. Watching polar bears on, melting ice caps, like no, I don't want to see that. Like that I feel grief seeing that. These are the only ways we're going to actually address the problems and bring importance to them is when we feel it in our hearts. That's how we make our world a better place. So those of us who are more attuned to our sensitivity, we have an important role to play, and we should be proud of our moral compass and our heart that's saying it's guiding humanity. Because majority of, and I don't want to make this like a man
Right,
versus
right.
woman conversation, but because we've all got masculine and feminine energy within us anyway. But the majority of us, let's say, who are living more from our masculine energy, it's very focused. It's very like, I have a goal to accomplish and I'm getting it done, no matter the cost. We're separating away from, should I do this? And is this the right thing? And how does that affect others around me? And that's again what that sensitivity calls us back to. It's so crucial that we allow that to have more of a forefront in not only our lives, but in the community as well. It needs to be
I
seen.
love what you said, and I feel like you nailed it right on the head without even knowing me too well. Is like I think I was more of a sensitive child that really learned over the years like emotions aren't good. They aren't like well received. So I've been thinking about this over the last week where I can put a poker face on. And the thought in my head is you're going to get bad news, don't show it. And I'm like, so that made me think like, well, at least I pinned something down of myself. Now let's dig deeper as to why that is. And it's mainly in business when I'm a little bit more
Yeah.
in my masculine because, you know, it, as you know, it's kind of hard being a woman in a like masculine environment. You have to sometimes act a little different. But one thing, to what you were saying again is I'm also now really feeling how I feel. And like in the romantic relationship I'm in now, I will do that where I'm like, I don't want to watch that. I don't feel like being stimulated from a
Mhm.
war movie or having, like, and I credit that to being more in tune with my body and not stuffing down, like, my gut feelings and saying, "Well, I can watch the war movie and it'll be fine, but at what expense?" It's then me not sleeping because 'cause I'm, back up here watching people get their heads blown off and, yelling and screaming, or do I wanna watch something that's just funny and lighthearted and that's just how I wanna fall asleep, you know?
Girl, I have the exact conversation with my partner all the time. And this is such a key example of how most men's nervous systems could watch a war movie at, 8 p.m. at night and then sleep soundly after. But for most women's nervous systems, that's just gonna throw us over the edge, especially if we're attuned to what we're feeling and really starting to notice our heart and
Yeah,
our
it
nervous
is.
system.
It's a great feeling knowing, that you're reassuring that I'm on the right track. But I do, because my anxiety is something that I still struggle with to this day. But one thing I wanted to learn more about is the anxiety reset method. And I want to buy your book. I plan on putting up all the books of people that I've interviewed because I am such a supporter. But I want my audience to know a little bit about the anxiety reset method so that they can go buy the book and dive deeper into it as well.
Yes. So the anxiety reset method is a three-pronged approach. We work with firstly mind reprogramming, which might sound really intense, but it's all in a for your best interest kind of way. It's not a reprogramming you for any negative purpose. So what we're looking at is what actually works to change those deeper patterns, because what I've often found for women is they'll come to me after, I've worked with a therapist for a number of years and it's been great, but I'm not really seeing progress. We're circling around the same things over and over. And if that's something that you want, then don't come and check out the anxiety reset method, because this is a space where we're interested in breaking patterns, getting the old identity of I'm someone who struggles with anxiety, because we do have to lose that way of seeing ourselves if we want to fully embody the calm woman as our baseline, which is something I used to call being an anxiety master. I've shifted the words a little recently. So in the book, we talk about becoming an anxiety master.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, it's just different words. You know why I changed it? I didn't want anxiety in the outcome that we're
Mm,
seeking
yeah,
as a words. But what anxiety master means is having a sense of power over the anxiety. So you're the one that's in command. And so that is so essential that we're looking at how we can break those deeper patterns. A lot of it has to do with shifting even the relationship we have with anxiety. So starting to see it as our friend, not as this, oh, anxiety's here again. Oh, this is the worst. That feeling of like, now my day is going to be terrible because I can feel the adrenaline in my body. I can feel the tightness in my chest. I can hear that voice that's criticizing me and telling me I need to be better in every way and I'm not good enough. So that's the first thing. The second thing we look at, and this is really the focus of the book as well, we go deep into building our physical resilience. So looking at the different components on a physical level that help us cope with stress in life, because we can't just wrap ourselves up in cotton wool and expect life to not throw us
I
a
wish I
challenge, like
could.
whether that's conflict in relationships. I mean, that's everywhere these days. It could be, job stress, it could be financial stress, the news, like all of the things, social media, just life is full of it. So, how do we support our physiology? Which was kind of the first thing I tried to do when I was working through my own stuff. And it needs all of the pieces to support it fully. But what we can look at physically is our gut health, our hormones supporting these things. I mean, every woman knows just how powerful hormones are for impacting how we feel about ourselves. All of a sudden, like your lovely life can look like everything's wrong for a few days before you bleed. And it's like, oh my God. And then, and then you get your period and it's like, "Oh, actually,
Yep.
maybe it's not so bad." Yeah, like and we can soften that intensity, it just depends. For some women, that whole phase goes for 2 weeks, like the entire luteal phase, like from ovulation to the next time there's a you get your period. So in those cases, like absolutely there's so much we can shift. But it is normal to a degree to feel a little bit more tired, a little bit more sensitive, have a bit of a cry before you get your period. That's actually really healthy and we need it. So then we've got our nutrition and how we're feeding ourselves, our blood sugar levels. We really want to keep that stable and steady. I mean, if I leave it too late to eat my lunch, I will start to feel some anxiety because that's how powerful our blood sugar levels are. So eating regular meals is something that we need to be mindful of. There might be certain nutrient deficiencies to look at too, which can play a big role. Magnesium being our obvious best friend with our nervous system, but there's others as well. And then we need to look at sleep. Are we having enough fun? Are we resting enough? What about our connection with nature? Are we spending time outside? Are we actually getting our feet in the grass? Are we having meaningful conversations with others and going deeper beyond just, how's life? Oh, that's a nice outfit. Like, tell me about your work. Are we going deeper into, how are you really feeling and what's on your mind and what are the things that are bothering you at the moment? And I'm here to listen, and being that for one another. Are we having those kind of conversations? And there's a whole host of things. Moving our bodies, for example, is another really key one. And then finally, the third piece of the anxiety reset method is what I call spiritual evolution. And this is where we need to look at how we are seeing ourselves as a part of the bigger picture of life, seeing ourselves as more than just this little human living this one story on the planet, and starting to zoom out. It's so powerful for helping to work with that anxiety and see it in a different way. It also is about cultivating trust in life, in the journey of life, with all its twists and turns and all the ways that it can go wrong and feel like it's going wrong when often it's actually going right. And it's usually going more right than we realize. So these are the things that can be so, so powerful for us in terms of starting to balance ourselves up. And that's where we get to respond to the message in the anxiety if we apply all of these different things. And that's what the anxiety reset
I
method
am
will
so
take you through.
excited to read this because it really I've been saying it, like when I'm on my game and I'm working out and I'm going on walks and I think it's kind of what's on social media these days, like this soft girl era where you're outside, you're
Mhm.
touching grass, you're eating healthy, you're taking care of your whole body, you're getting the 8 hours of sleep. The anxiety doesn't go away because it's always going to be there, I think, but I've also realized too, like there are certain foods, like red wine will give me anxiety the next day, where I'm like, why is
Oh,
my
yeah.
chest like pounding? Like I get anxiety that's almost like a body anxiety, where I'm like, I have nothing up here to be worried about, which is rare. So why am I getting physical, like bodily anxiety? And I'm like, because I had wine the night
Mm.
before. And it's like,
Do you wanna know
why?
why that happens? It's because I'm sensitive to alcohol too. I'm very selective about the occasions I will actually drink, but because I just otherwise it's not a part of my routine. But the reason we get this rebound anxiety effect is that when we do drink alcohol, it temporarily blocks these receptors in our brain called GABA receptors that have a down regulating effect. They calm us down. So that's why when you initially have the drink, you're like, ooh, life feels good. I'm not worried about any of my problems anymore. But then, because it's only a temporary block, the next day that block's gone, and we've got this sudden opening of all the channels that were blocked before, and so we feel it really intensely as like a rubber band snapping back.
That makes
Yeah.
all the sense in the world. And there is, since you're on the naturopath side of things, there is GABA supplements, right? That are supposed to be really good for, I guess, just giving you that like feeling.
Yeah, they can be. We've gotta be mindful of the GABA then being able to, because it's gonna be if you take, like, a GABA supplement, it's gonna be absorbed through your digestive system, and it's got to be disassembled to then be reassembled back
Okay.
together on the other side, once it's in your bloodstream to actually go into your brain. So, it can be helpful, but it also depends, and we can possibly get the same effect if we're just eating enough protein and getting the nutrients needed to actually build GABA, like our zinc. Vitamin B6 is a really key one. We've got to be careful not to overdo that, and magnesium also
Okay.
plays a key role.
I hope everyone is writing these down in their journal because these are just
Yeah.
good things. You know, there's probably so
True.
much more on the internet of how to get these nutrients into your body, but it is. I think, we get so worried about, I want to say, aging and getting older. It's like if we start these things, anxiety will make you look older. Like you can't out diet aging, you can't out skincare aging. But if you kind of take care of your body, we talked about it a little earlier, you just become a little softer, a
Mm.
little calmer, and your baseline is calm. Your body has time to like regenerate cells and it has time to just be.
Yeah, 100%. And like that's how, you know, again, the slower we're aging, the more there's that vitality in our body. It's the same with our reproductive health, whether we want to utilize that or not for making babies. Like you still want to have strong reproductive health because it's a
Right.
marker of your overall health and levels of inflammation in the body. So the speed at which we're aging is one of those markers too. And over time, yes, if we've got these elevated cortisol levels and we never, it's just so crucial for so many aspects of life. Like the cool thing about anxiety is it makes us really uncomfortable right now, like today. So today you feel, I want to do something about this. But again, this loving friend that's speaking to you, it's saying, hey, come and see me, come and work with me. Because if we do work with it and we become a friend to it back, over time, the effects are just going to accumulate with more positive benefits like slower aging, like more health, like feeling having less health
Mhm.
issues pop up later in life too. Anxiety builds up inside us, and our repressed emotions is the other key. I talk about it like a volcano filling with lava. And over time, that volcano gets so full because I'll often have Caitlin, like women in their 40s or even 60s come to me and they were like, I was never like this. And then all of a sudden,
Mm.
I've just had this anxiety come up or panic attacks out of the blue. And what's happened is that volcano's gotten so full that it's now going to erupt and we get burnout or we get panic attacks or just chronic low grade anxiety that's just
So do
always
you
there.
feel like, and I feel like with this conversation, I kind of understand the answer, but do you feel like anxiety holds women back from like achieving their best professional or like their highest personal self? You talk about burnout and like for me, burnout feels like two steps backwards. So if I recognize the anxiety now and I go do something that makes me happy or calm, going to get a massage or my nails done or taking a nap, it maybe sets me back one step, but if I'm burnout, I'm 5 steps back in the other direction. So do you see that with your clients at all?
Yes, 100%. So, I mean, once you hit burnout, you're out of the game for often months before you can recover and fully come back from that. So, yes, but it's interesting because this brings in another question talking about the soft girl era. Because I went pretty hard into my soft girl era, and it's something that I can drop back into very readily when I need to. But what I noticed was because I moved to a place in Australia called Byron Bay. You might have heard of it. It's where like Chris Hemsworth hangs out and there's beach and it's very like farms and natural
Uh,
food and everything's just
you go
beautiful.
visit.
And there's dolphins. It's amazing. And it's the perfect place to be a soft girl and just walk around barefoot on the beach every day and get massages and live a beautiful life. But what I found was that I hit this point where that stopped being the highest calling in my life. There was a time where that was my growth edge, and I was like, "Oh, how slow can I go?" But then I realized that I actually still have a lot of impact that I want to make on the world, and there's purpose that I want to pursue too. And if we go so hard into soft girl, we can often lose a sense of that purpose and impact. And so there's this beautiful like balance where we can culminate the two together, and that's where I'm living life from now, is that place of dropping into soft. And so for example, weekends are such a sacred time for me. Switch off my emails, I don't do any work, I set things up in my business so that I can, and everyone knows that works with me, like I don't respond to things over weekends. That's my space where I will be going and swimming in a waterfall. I'll be having a nap, I'll be painting, doing all these things for me. And then during the week, that's my time where I actually do want to have the mission and the work that I'm here to do with the world, because that's my the question I'm most fascinated with is, can we have the impact without the anxiety that comes along with it that we often think we need to have to get there, right? We often think to build a business or to have a big like impact on the world that you've got to quick like hustle and rush and get it done, and I've got to like be really stressed about it, which was what I was shown again, those patterns in my family growing up. And it's like, what if we can have the success, but we don't need all
Yeah.
that anxiety?
One thing I've noticed, and I relate this more to, I think, social media and my friends. So I've been on this dating journey where I've, just tried to become a little bit more vulnerable. And to my anxiety point, like I used to be very much a perfectionist. And I had dated somebody who was what I think, because I'm not a clinician, was more on the narcissist scale. So I would think about every
Mm.
word that I would say to make it perfect, because if it wasn't, it would set him off. And so I put all of my social media on private. I was like, it was kind of my Byron Bay that you're going through, where I was like, I just need
Mhm.
to be me and I need to like not have the world watching me. And in like opening it back up and kind of becoming back on social media and doing the podcast, there's so much power in like vulnerability and just talking and like communicating and being
Yeah.
your authentic self. Some days I'm like, oh, this post is just my thoughts. And it's just kind of me sharing with the world. There's no business motivation to it. There's no, buy this, I'm selling this, listen now. It's just, this is what I'm thinking. And there's something just so magical about that duality where people are drawn to it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and that's a beautiful example of that amalgamation of softness with also showing up. You're not just gonna, show up one week and then go away for a month. Like there's still a consistency to it. That is exactly the space that we can go, and then think of the amount of people who need to hear that, who need to hear that realness of what you're feeling and what you're thinking. I mean, it just ha our world needs
Yeah.
so much real more than ever. Yeah, and like real humans. So that's so beautiful. I love that for you. And I could almost I knew what you were about to say, and I'll tell you why, cuz I just can read patterns really quick, and there's something in men who are more on the narcissistic side will gravitate towards. We often think that the kind of woman they will choose is someone weak or someone who's like an easy target, but the perfect narcissist bait is a woman who is shiny, who has something to offer, who might look good on their arm, and yet is also highly empathetic, and has that sensitivity, because that will have us kind of excuse behavior. That will have us go, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Oh, like I kind of feel sorry for him because he's only like this because I can understand and I get
Yep.
him, you know? Yeah. So I had the same thing. I had the same thing, and thank goodness, like, was able to pause and break those patterns because, yeah, it's the coolest journey to watch people go through and
Yeah.
to go through it
I
yourself.
It took me about 3, 2.5, 3 years to really kinda get my spark back because, you go through this, like,
Mm,
questioning of, "Am I the problem? There's no way. My heart is good. I can't imagine," and then, like you said, you're empathetic and you're like, "Well, they're only like this because the sun was gray that day," whatever excuse it is.
yeah. Well, like, his dad was really hard
Yes.
on him, or you can see the yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I
So,
know.
it's, you know, it's a great thing. And I think in this journey, I've had my own ways of, I suppose, like self-soothing. But what are some ways, like when someone is having that just overwhelming or like they feel anxiety starting to creep up? Like, what are some things that they can do to just feel more confident, to feel more grounded and take the space and just
Yeah.
get out of it?
So, short term, our breath and our internal, whatever we're telling ourselves in that moment, are our two key tools. They're going to be with you wherever you are, no matter what you're doing. So, with the breath, one of the quickest things you can do, and this is backed by research, is to take a deep breath in through your belly, an extra breath, an extra sip of air at the top. So you're taking essentially two breaths in, but you really want to feel the lungs stretch and expand, and then a long exhale out. That's called the physiological sigh, and it will lower your heart rate time. If you can't remember that, just remember every time you're breathing a long breath out, not the breath in. We want to kind of do that quicker than our breath out. A long exhale is what will lower our heart rate and slow us down. Now, in terms of our internal, what's happening inside your own mind, you may be telling yourself, oh no, this is bad. This shouldn't be happening. My body is against me. I'm not safe inside my own body. This won't happen overnight. But the longer term kind of space that you want to be practicing within, and this is something that inside the Calm Woman Collective, we are working through this. There's actually a year long sort of process that I guide women through. But we will gradually learn to reshape that internal dialogue so that what you're saying to yourself when anxiety comes up is, this is okay that this is
Mm.
here. This isn't a big deal. You know, actually, maybe it's really valid that I'm feeling this because life is a lot and everything's quite stressful. And maybe we just need to take a moment to feel some tears and just like, and that can take 2 minutes. It doesn't have to just derail your whole day. It's just about letting whatever's inside you move through so that then you can keep going on with your day being you
Yeah.
to make it run. Yeah, shifting that internal way that we're speaking to ourselves into a more gentle, soft, compassionate tone and very welcoming to the anxiety that's there. Because the more we fight it, Caitlin, the more we push it away, the more that it gathers energy and momentum. And that's what most of us are doing all the time. And that's what this is one thing where, like, with therapy and the typical sort of tactics we have, like distraction, we'll just like go look at something else. That's actually going to, over time, make us even more allergic to our own anxiety. We want to be able to come towards it gently, slowly, to a place where we can sort of notice it and just be like, yeah, okay, so there's some buzzing in my chest and there's some like uncomfortable sensations here, but that's okay. Like it's all right that it's here. And it's so cool because you'll watch it just melt away and disappear. And you start to realize just how powerful you really are that
Yeah.
you can do that.
And to your point too, where you're like, even if you have a full like a meltdown to where you're crying and you're physically, offloading this anxiety, it really only is like 2 minutes. It's,
Yeah.
versus, and I'm so guilty of this, where I stuff it down and I keep going. And then by the end of the day, I feel like I have, you know, a literal elephant on my chest. And I'm like, I've been carrying this weight all day long. I did this yesterday. I probably
Yeah.
had a 5 hour, panic attack that I was working through. But then I got to the
Mm,
end of the day and I was like, I'm drained. Like I'm fully, my boyfriend was like, are you okay? I was like, I feel like I was just like my energy was so high. Like I was almost like we have a place here called Not Scary Farm where during the hot people like dress up all scary and they try to scare you. And so you're like adrenaline's high the whole time. And I was like, I just feel like empty. And it's like, if you just,
Yeah.
I saying this to myself, if you would have just taken the 5 minutes to let it out, go on a walk, fully let go of the anxiety, the entire day, I think would have been different.
Yeah, and do you know what's interesting? It's like where we often are feeling quite powerless in that moment or a bit helpless even. And if we what we're trying to do usually is we're afraid of that. So we try to kind of sit on the surface of it and we're like, "Oh no, I feel really helpless and powerless, but no, 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 I can keep going. I can keep." What happens is if we just drop in and we're like, "No, I feel totally powerless and helpless," and we just like
Yeah.
collapse. And that's sitting still and like letting yourself have a big girl cry, it ends up clearing it much faster because we just need a moment to see that part of ourselves. And it's just like, oh my God, there's this part of myself that's holding so much that is feeling so heavy. I mean, Caitlin, I had a cry yesterday in the similar way. Like, and actually, we've got this Scorpio new moon coming up. I don't know how much you follow astrology, but it's so fascinating to me. Like every woman I know that's sensitive is feeling big emotions at the moment too. So there's a lot of watery emotional energy that's pushing those buttons right now. Just more on that just the
Yeah.
weather forecast of the energy at the moment. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you were feeling a lot in recently too. So it's yeah, that moment of just like letting ourselves feel it and really drop in, which requires a bit of courage. It's not the thing we're taught to
Hmm.
do. It's not the thing we're used to doing. But that's where it's like, oh, I feel such
Yeah.
relief now. I don't feel powerless. I actually feel like neutral. I feel like I can
Right.
handle
I
things
have a
now.
story that I always love talking about. And it's where here in Wyoming, there's a place that has a lot of like dust storms. And there's cows and there's buffalo. And the cows just naturally run from the storm when they see it. And in turn, that keeps them in the storm longer. And then the buffalo, they actually go into the storm because they know they'll get out of it faster. It'll be harder for like 2, 3 minutes, but they'll get through it on the other side. Whereas the cows just get, wrapped up in it for as long as the storm lasts. It's a very,
I love that. That is the best
you could
analogy. I might have to
it.
borrow that. Be the buffalo,
I
everyone. Be
put
a
that in a
buffalo.
post and people were like, I'm sorry, what? Be a buffalo? I'm like, you gotta wait. You want to be the buffalo, but steal away. It's all yours.
I need to find like an Australian animal version of that. That'll like people will love that. Like maybe kangaroos do something with storms or
You could probably chat GPT it and find something.
yeah.
Well, I absolutely loved our talk
Woman.
today, and I want people, men and women, to understand where they can learn more about all of your books. I heard something about a all-female
Mhm,
collective. I wanna know everything about where
mhm.
people can follow you, where they can find you, and where they can potentially work with you.
So beautiful. Well, firstly, check out my website, georgiecollinson.com, because that's just where all the information is. I've got my podcast there, we've got the books. The Calm Woman Collective is a monthly membership. So you can join it, you can check it out, you can stay with us if you're loving it. Most women stay for the year, and it's just a space where you're putting yourself into a supportive container to step by step have the consistency, which is the thing most people are lacking, to really apply this stuff and create deep change. So we're rewiring neural pathways. You are becoming a calm woman through this process. And then hang out with me over on Instagram at Georgie Collinson. That's where I am
And
most of
I
the
will
time.
put all of this in the show notes. Thank you, Georgie, for being on the call, and thank you, everyone, for spending this time with us on Love in the Wild. Remember, your growth, your peace, and your power are worth protecting. So keep raising your standards, protecting your energy, and owning your worth. I'll see you on the next episode.